Hello everyone, welcome to this trade breakdown on EU. This is a trade I took yesterday, on Wednesday. In this breakdown, I'm going to walk you through every part of it in full detail: the execution, directional bias, market context, narrative, logic, confirmation, everything behind it. That way, you can understand exactly why I took this trade and, more importantly, how you can replicate the same process moving forward. Before I get into the actual breakdown, let me give you a bit of context. On Monday and Tuesday, I didn't take a single trade. The thing is, I already knew the directional bias. I had shared the weekly outlook on Tuesday, so I knew I was on the right side of the move. But even then, I didn't take a single trade because price didn't offer any valid setup for me to take. Instead of forcing anything or getting emotional, I stayed risk-off. And that's exactly what separates a professional trader from an amateur. Most people, in that situation, would have started chasing entries or forcing a setup just because they didn't want to miss the move. But I didn't do that. I stayed out and waited 2 full days before I got a single entry. During those 2 days, I didn't take any trades. I had no fear of missing out, no regrets, because I knew I don't get rewarded for just taking trades. I get rewarded for following my system with consistency and, most importantly, with discipline. Now let's break this trade down. Going into Wednesday, my directional bias was bearish because the higher time frame draw on liquidity was lower. But obviously I couldn't just start selling immediately. First, I needed a clear narrative to form, and more importantly, I needed proper market context before I could frame a trade idea. Here's what I had in mind. The first factor was that we had taken out external liquidity with the move right here. So the logical next move for price was to fill internal liquidity before it started pushing lower toward the higher time frame downside liquidity. That was the main premise I had in mind. In this scenario, I chose this 4-hour fair value gap as my internal liquidity. The level price would likely fill before expanding lower. At the start of the day, I was looking for price to fill that fair value gap and then continue lower. The second factor was the formation of a new dealing range. Within that range, this internal liquidity, or the fair value gap, sat inside the premium region. My expectation was for price to push into the premium region of the dealing range, test a key level within it, and then expand lower. That was the second thing I had in mind. The third factor was that I wanted to see the high of the day form within this premium key level, then see a daily dealing range expansion lower. So based on these 3 factors, I had a solid narrative in mind. In this case, I chose this fair value gap as my premium key level and this candle range to give me proper market context. At this point, I had both a narrative and a market context. All that was left was for price to confirm or validate this, to actually push toward internal liquidity, fill it, and then give me lower time frame confirmation. So I waited, and once price pushed into that fair value gap, tested the premium key level, and filled internal liquidity, that's when I started looking for a bearish confirmation entry, specifically an order block formation on the lower time frame. Now looking at this 15-minute time frame, you can see that during the London open kill zone, price didn't have any significant movement. It just ranged. Then during the London lunch kill zone, price pushed higher, took out the candle range high, and moved into the 4-hour premium key level. It rebalanced the dealing range, and from there, I began looking for a bearish order block confirmation entry. Initially, what happened was that price closed below this candle right here. So I took that as my order block and waited for price to test it before moving lower. However, price pushed even further down and closed below these 3 consecutive candles. In that case, I took this group of 3 candles as a newly formed order block. I then waited for price to come back and test that order block before pushing lower. And that's exactly what happened.